Today, we're gonna take a look at how the main image from the school was done. This is episode 2 of the breakdown. Hey everyone, Oliver here with another video. I'm at a different scenario. I came to visit my grandparents for a few days, and my grandpa, he builds this airplane model, so I decided to record this video here. Today, we're going to take an in-depth look on this image on the PSD file. This was a competition that I joined with my girlfriend, who's also an architect, to design a rural school for the Taniwa community in Haiti. I think I've mentioned this project once or twice here, but I never really made a dedicated video to it. And I wanted to bring another breakdown video, and this image has a lot of cool things to share. I think you're gonna like it. Now, this video is sponsored by Skillshare, an online learning community for creatives, where millions come together to take the next step in their creative journey. It's a place where you can explore new skills, where everyone is seeking the same goal to get creative and accomplish real growth. But more on that later on the video, because for now, we have this amazing image to talk about. Alright, so the modeling and the rendering part were done in SketchUp and V-Ray, but there isn't much I can say about this, other than it was a pretty basic render, right? I just made sure I got the sun direction the way I wanted, the scene properly chosen, and I also used a top-down site image. I think this was a Google Earth photo, just to have a bit of information of where the paths were, but I knew I would recreate them in Photoshop. As you can see, the layers are all organized into color-coded folders. This is a non-destructive workflow. We have a full course teaching this method over our platform. I'm gonna leave a link in the video description if you'd like to check it out. Now, I think it's important to say that there's no recipe of where you should start, but I usually like to get the overall location and surroundings done before moving into the details. So the first thing that I chose to go was the ground, the foreground elements. It was really cool that the competition organization provided a lot of site photos so that we could understand the context of where we're going to be designing. So I took advantage of those photos and I stitched them together to recreate the location with our design in place. I gotta say that it's pretty hard to have just one single photo that can solve this for us. So as you can see, the photos are here with the mask on each one of these photos. And on the mask, I used various brushes, usually vegetation type of brushes, to reveal only areas I wanted. And you can also see that the masks are unlinked from the layers, which allows me to move the layer without moving the mask itself. It really helps me to place them correctly. I'm assuming the photos were all taken at the same day and at the same time, and that usually results in a pretty homogeneous set of photos. But even with the same conditions, they can come out different from each other. Therefore, you need to use the adjustment layers to add adjustments and correct colors and values so they match up. There's also no recipe for this. It's a matter of looking and understanding. It's more like this needs to be slightly brighter, but with a less contrast. The color here needs to shift slightly towards the yellow and so on. It's about testing out and seeing if it works or not. I usually add many adjustment layers and clip them all to the photo using the shortcut Ctrl-Alt-G. And I gotta say that this process takes time, but it's definitely rewarding. Modeling all of this in 3D would have taken ages, plus you would need a very specific type of vegetation to achieve the same look and get the same location appearance. Now, once the ground is all set up, we need to replicate the shadows from the building. You can use many tools to do this. Draw yourself with a brush, make a selection with the selection tool. It doesn't really matter. Simply copy the shadow that came from the render. I usually do this on a new layer above the ground folder. So right from the beginning, I wanted to emphasize the pink color in this image. It was the school color scheme, plus the board would have a strong identity among many other entries. Therefore, I painted very softly with a soft brush and a pink color and changed the blend mode to soft light. I did this on the building as well. Alright, now let's finish the surroundings and enable the background elements. The logic here was the same. I used the photos that they provided to emulate what the horizon would look like. It's easier if you use the ruler to set up a guide as your horizon line, then follow it to place the background elements. So the sky was pink, and by the way I framed this image was so that we would have a lot of sky to place other drawings and text information, as you saw in the board at the beginning of the video. So a pink sky, but I needed some contrast. I tested out and saw that a yellow would compose pretty well with this. So I used a variety of free watercolor brushes I found online to create this sort of gradient. This project was done a few months after other competitions that I joined, and I had that cloth sky style going on, so that's what I used. But to be honest, a lot of other textures would work quite alright. Oh, and then to finish up the background, I added a soft pink haze on the horizon elements to make them all blend seamless together. Now, before we jump into the extras of this image, which are what really made this image special, let me talk about today's video sponsor, Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning community with literally thousands of classes for curious people. Here you can learn pretty much everything related to creativity. I always say how much important it is to go outside of the architectural world and then bring that useful information to representation and visualization. You can learn art, photography, graphic design, illustration, and that will definitely help you out. And you can even learn about personal development and entrepreneurship. Now, I'm eager to share that Nathaniel Drew, a content creator that I follow very closely, has launched a new course on Skillshare. It's called Creativity Unleashed: Discover, Hone, and Share Your Voice Online. And he talks about how everyone has a different creative journey and how to work on your creative expression. So this is a class I can definitely recommend. Skillshare has no ads, so it's curated for learning. They are always launching new courses. You can explore different creative areas under the same membership, which, by the way, if you get the annual subscription, is less than $10 a month. They sent me a special coupon, so the first 1,000 of my subscribers to click the link in the description will get a free trial to explore your creativity. Thanks a lot Skillshare for sponsoring this video and supporting this channel. Okay, it's time now to talk extras. Sometimes a few elements might not come out as you wanted, so I usually like to have a folder or a few layers dedicated to fix them and curate the details so that it looks as I wanted. For example, the roof's under part, I wanted to emphasize the repeated lines. Now then, over another Photoshop file, I created these stencil letters. We thought of a way of bringing more identity to this school so that you got a recognizable look from far away. After that, I thought of making the collage and realistic look more emphatic by inserting some contour lines on the building. Here, I saw that black lines wouldn't work too well. That's why I used white lines that worked great. You can use SketchUp with the Styles tab to export a black line image using the same scene. And then here in Photoshop, hit Ctrl-I to invert the layer. Then change the blend mode to screen so that all blacks get transparent. And actually, you don't need to have all the lines revealed. You can and actually should use a mask to show only the essential lines. A bit of tedious work, I know, but definitely worth it. Then, if the lines didn't come as you expected, you can draw them yourself with a small round hard brush. Next, same thing applies here for the brick textures. You can export one that shows the textures only. Usually render elements might already export one of these if you enable it. Then use a few adjustment layers to get a lot of contrast, and then use Ctrl-I to invert if needed, and then set the blend mode to screen. This is a workaround just to emphasize the brick lines so that it would stay pretty visible in this image. So with the surroundings out of the way and the building itself also done, it was time to add cutouts, that being people, trees, and so on. I also took advantage of the photos provided and cut out a lot of the students that appeared on it, so that I would use people that made sense for this place, right? It would just ruin the image if I used a bunch of winter coated people, right? Or some business people going to work. At the end of the day, you're telling a story, and the people here will help you show how the design would be used daily. Inserting people isn't hard, but it can be quite tricky. We have an introductory video here on the channel that explains more about that in details, especially how to add shadows. But essentially, you know that I like to tell stories with the people I'm going to use. Then once they are properly scaled and the location was chosen, I start adding adjustment layers to correct how the sunlight hits the person and how intense the shadows are. That is essential and really helps to sell that the person is well placed. Then you add shadows, and there's no correct order here. You can do shadows first and values later. In the video that I mentioned, I talk more about the two types of shadows, the touch shadow and the long shadow, and how to create them. We proposed an iconic tree in the middle of these two bars. This was quite easy to place. A simple mask was enough. Okay, then after you finished all the essential layers and groups, you can still add a few adjustment layers on top. Usually what I recommend is to not leave any layers outside groups, but I know that might not be possible at all times, especially when time is short and we gotta hand in our work. In this particular image, I thought the sky was a bit too saturated, so I added a hue and saturation adjustment layer to fix a bit of that, just a tiny bit. And then you might be familiar with this step if you've been a follower of this channel for some time now. After I finish up everything, I usually come up with a last layer to bring up the textures a bit. You can use the camera raw filter for this, or I got this plugin a few years back. It's called Topaz plugin. It just enhances the overall image. I got the older version and never updated since then. But the camera raw filter does basically the same thing, and there you also have the color features to fine-tune everything a bit to your liking. Either way, I think this last step is quite important to wrap things up. It's just that extra final step, isn't it? And there you have it. I really liked this final result. The yellow part of the sky makes the building stand out from the background. The colors are pretty different from what you see out there. As I said, we got the school color palette and took advantage of that to stand out among many other entries. If you want to see this project with more details, be sure to check my Behance profile. The link is in the video description. Also, thanks again for Skillshare for sponsoring this video and supporting this channel. It really helps you maintain a consistent YouTube schedule. Be sure to check them out. And if you stayed till here and learned something, don't forget to like and subscribe to not miss out on future videos. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!